By the hand of death!
Hey, this is Dan Green, and this is an illustration of one of my favorite characters ever, Seto Kaiba. We're going to watch this time lapse to see how I put it together. Right off the bat, I know I want a full body pose in an 8x10 format, and I get a pose, a feel, a position, an energy in his body that I think is fitting for Kaiba. It feels a little bit aggressive, it also feels a little bit slick, and kind of also elegant. So then I focus on the background, and I know I want some kind of iconic image that really brings the whole idea together. His corporate logo does the trick. And now I get back to finessing. So, like any artist will tell you, you start in broader strokes or more rudimentary forms, and then you refine as you go along. This version of Kaiba has a lot of details, so I'll be bouncing around a lot, refining some over here, refining some over there. Getting the shape of the jacket, I think, is crucial. There's this idea of the silhouette of the character, so you can tell who the character is just by their outline, and the way that Kaiba's coat flares up, and also those shoulders, they make absolutely no sense. Those shoulders need to flare in a certain way. And what are the things with the hips? What are those, like, coat knife jab blades? I'm not sure. They don't make sense, they just look cool. As I get further into detailing the coat, I'm adding more wrinkles, and you'll see that as I work from left to right, I'm adding more and more billowing in his coat, which ultimately I'm going to decide to simplify and take away, but I'm glad that I did all this work to fill it out with more detail than it needed, so pulling it back was easy. Having the perspective worked out how the coat spreads away from him was really helpful. Now I'm refining the outside shapes, the line work. You'll see I'm doing a little detailing up in the shoulder area, and now I'm coming back down to the leg. And all these wrinkles in clothing, it really is worth spending the time to try to get a handle on it so that at least you don't hate it or dread it, because it adds so much reality, which, even if you're making a fantastical figure, you're going to want to be able to make the clothes look at least realistic enough that it doesn't look horrible. A great example of an artist who handles that stuff beautifully is a classic illustrator by the name of Al Williamson. The name is spelled exactly as it sounds. Just search it up and you will see how great he was at that stuff and other stuff. And I'm refining the boot here, and I again feel like I need more and more wrinkles in those legs. And the shape on the way the boot and the pants are interacting right now, the front of it isn't quite right, so I adjust that so it looks more rounded. Little details like that add up. Now I'm going to focus in on some of the more obvious details, the ones we look at the most, the face, the upper body, and getting Kaiba's hair right and shaped face right is something I'm obviously feeling I really need to honor. I'm getting those buckles down on the arms, but I'm mixing the style of anime with how I naturally draw, which is not in an anime style. And this is not a question of good or bad. I have nothing but respect for many styles of illustration, anime included. And there's obviously lots of variations even within that style. But the general difference is the size of the eyes, the simplicity of the nose being really just a line, usually, and other things. And we'll get back to my version of Kaiba's face. But obviously now it's more important for me to deal with the detailing on his boots. I know this isn't like the fun part, it's just a necessary part. You gotta pay attention to all the details, right? So now I'm finally working out his shoulders, which again, like I said before, make no sense. I had to refer to people who were doing great cosplays and some of the figures to get a handle on how they were suggesting this coat worked. I did my own interpretation where I left a little gap, so it's kind of like a tunic you wear over the darker shirt underneath. In certain models and in certain cosplays, they've connected it so that it's all one unit, which it must be really hard to do. Now we're back to Kaiba's face, and I give him cheekbones and a more realistic looking nose. And I'm at this point wondering, are the fans going to hate me for doing that? And I touched base with Eric, and he said, no, just follow your instincts, and it's a valid interpretation. So I kind of blended the two a little bit, I think, in the final version. But I've had some reaction from the fans, and they've been nothing but kind about it. And I think the divergence from the absolute traditional replication of the anime that people saw on the WB, that's okay. It seems like a little variation is accepted. So now I'm putting in white as a backing because I'm going to start doing the shading process. I add the values of light and shade before I start applying the color. And having everything whited out in the back gives me the best background to start building that up. Having the background a different color pops the figure from the page and helps the line work to stand out so I can see what I need to continue to work on. I'm playing with basic colors that I'm sampling from images of Kaiba that I found online. I want the colors to be consistent with what people know. And I'm going to start adding the gray tones in just a moment. There, that's the start of it. And there's also a number of surfaces that are reflective. Metal buttons. I decided to make the gauntlets on his forearms and the boots of his leg to be very reflective. That's not, I think, an original idea. I just really cranked that up a bit. Oh, there I've simplified the draping of his coat behind him. You see there, and yeah, and from when I'm at this stage of the illustration, I feel like I'm more in the final stretch, even though that may be something of an illusion because it's not unusual to keep tweaking and refining. But what I mean by that is I'm really feeling like I'm seeing the shape come together. And whatever the colors may turn out to be, I feel like when I look at that, I have a comprehensive understanding of what that figure is. Just how dark to go with his shirt and pants, or maybe it's a bodysuit, I don't know. He's wearing a belt, but that doesn't really explain anything. So I leaned into it. I went as dark as I could, and the brightness of the purple, fuchsia, magenta, whatever you want to call it, in the inner lining of his coat. That was another interesting color to tweak. Kaiba's hair is crucial to his look, the shape of it, this kind of refined bowl cut. And now we get into the shiny boots, which was really fun to do. It's not a difficult process. I'm using an airbrush to get that more blended feeling. And obviously I'm just not coloring in the center of it, so it looks as though that's where the light is reflecting off the most. I handled the highlights on his buttons in a different way, using a different brush that's actually called a luminescence brush. It's like literally painting with light, and it has a glow, a radius around it, which is really, really handy for certain things. I'm seeing I left a little work to do on the buckles of his boots, some small details but once I get those squared away, I can get back to the lighting values. I really love black and white. That's part of the reason why I'm doing Crossing the Gods in that style. But there's a clarity that, not that I have anything against color, but there is a clarity that black and white gives you that is unique. All you manga readers out there know. I mean, it's grayscale, but it's still called black and white. And now I'm adding in the colors. You're seeing little flashes there of the images of Kaiba that I'm using to reference to sample the colors from. I've really enjoyed exploring a new style of drawing. Not that I have gone full-on manga or anime style, but it's always an educational experience. And I don't mean like boring education that you don't want to be in, but like when you learn something, it's cool, and I really have a great appreciation for the elongation of the body and how to simplify the face and still get what you want from it, and so much of the composition work and the amount of raw energy that really good anime and manga artists have. Again, I'm not claiming I've achieved that, but it's a wonderful thing to play with, to embrace, to explore. Oh, that lining of the coat is coming along. And of course there's how it looks without the real background behind it. I'm going to use a much more dynamic background and a darker background when it comes to it. There I've dropped the shading away just to look at the color values as they are, and now the shading is kicked back in. Of course, Kaiba wouldn't be Kaiba without his cards. I guess no duelist would be. I'm drawing a simplified version of his cards as opposed to photoshopping in a sample of a real card. I can't say for sure, but I think this is almost exactly the kind of pose Eric might do when he gets a photo with a fan. Here's the dynamic, crazy, energized background. Yeah, because it's Kaiba Corp. As you can see, I skip around a lot from different parts of the drawing. And now that that background element is, not done but good enough, I return back to the cards and I'm like, oh yeah, he has to be holding one, obviously. Now that that detail is taken care of, I look over the drawing and I see, okay, what else do I need to do? For finishing touches, I add some highlighting to the wrinkles in the clothes. Never neglect those. And more shading, again with the clothes. And it's almost done. We're about 95% there. Certainly a little finishing detail to be done, but otherwise, this is pretty much it. Thank you so much for joining me for this first episode of By the Hand of Dan. And please leave some comments. Let me know what you liked or what you didn't like or what you want more of or anything. I'm happy to hear what you have to say. And for all of you illustrators out there, I'm with you. Maybe seeing something get made that fast is inspiring. I know anytime I look back at these time-lapse videos, I'm like, yeah, if I could only actually draw that fast, that would be amazing. I'd be happy to do a similar video for the Dark Magician Girl or Dark Magician or Yami Yugi, these other illustrations. I'm also working on an 11 by 17. These are 8 by 10. I'm working on an 11 by 17 with Slifer the Sky Dragon and Yami Yugi and Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl, all there together in the same composition. I'm still completing the line work, but I have the composition down, so I know where the image is going. And that's a big part of the job. I also want to say a very special thank you to all the artists and illustrators who have shared their amazing work with me, who have gifted me such wonderful pieces of art. I'm so blown away by what you do, and it's very exciting to see your creativity. Keep it up. And thanks so much for joining me for this first episode, and I'll look forward to the next time we can break down something made
by the hand of Dan!